Hello, it's Steve here, and today we are going to look at the role of the Scrum Master in terms of team success. Like, what role does the Scrum Master play in being able to bring great success for the team? And it sort of comes back to this sort of doubt that has crept in, misconception, as it were, about the role of Scrum Master and the purpose. Like, why do we need uh, this person in the team when we have, we can share the responsibilities across the team, and it really becomes quite a quite an irritant to actually have to, after 20 odd years, still be selling the concept and the purpose of Scrum Master. There's a valid reason for it because we there is a huge amount of mediocrity in the role, and people, the let's say there are quite a number of Scrum Masters that sort of just go through the motions, and that might be also that they're spread quite thin across multiple teams, and so it's very difficult for them to go really deep and build a real depth into the role. But it has never been as prevalent um, or important as it is right now as a Scrum Master because the team is evolving. The product development team is evolving, right? The advent of AI is really having a big impact in the way that we now build products. And so the role of Scrum Master really enabling the team and building or creating the right environment for the team has never been as important as it is today. So in order to to give the Scrum Master as much um, capability and and ensure that there is a great way of, or the Scrum Master can actually really be effective, is to give a, a, a maximum of two teams per Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master has two teams that they can really focus in on. And if they can do that, their role can just be so um, useful and effective because they can really focus in on the team and look at what is going on, right? It's almost like having a pair of eyes that is just fixated on how the team is operating, how the team is collaborating and performing together, connecting. Look deep into the kind of cultural aspects, things like trust, things like accountability and ownership, and look at all of those things in detail and look at the data and how those things are happening. If the Scrum Masters spread really thin, it's just impossible to do that because you're fighting fires, you're trying to operate a level, the cognitive load of trying to sort of figure out all of the different facets and interactions that each team is having, becomes impossible. When I was Scrum Master many years ago, I had a, I think something like 16 projects in play. This was back in the time when it was literally project focused. So you'd have Scrum, but then you'd have every team would be operating in a project scenario. But you'd have projects at different life cycles, and I'd have about six teams. Some teams were in the development cycle, and some were in the design cycle. Some had a combination of design, build, and test and deliver all in one. So it's very much like a waterfall, dressed as an agile framework. Anyway, I had a number of different teams. I was spread really thin, and I couldn't. I my stand-ups would start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be finished by 11:30. And by the time 11:30 came, my memory of what was going on at 10 o'clock in the morning from the first team on the stand up was was blurred. I was really trying to kind of figure it all out. I had, thousands of post-it notes all just sort of stuck to my hands, and my effectiveness was very, very minimal. And so if you were uh, if you were a budget holder looking at that, you would probably be thinking, do we actually need a Scrum Master, or do we just need somebody who can facilitate and you know sort of work with post-it notes and put things up on a board and that kind of thing. Um, and you'd sort of start to question, well, if that's all that they do, then we can just share that responsibility across all of the team. You see how this works, right? So the difference is that when you have a Scrum Master who can really go deep on a team, who can really figure it out and what's going on, be that kind of just almost like a fly on the wall, but you're sort of just standing at the side and looking a bit like in sport, and the coach on the side just looking at how things are going on. If you've got the team themselves in play on the pitch, they can't see what's going. They don't have that vision, that perspective vision of the whole game, right? They can't see it. In rugby, the coaches sit right up in the stands because they need to be able to see the whole pitch. In football, you have it on they're on the ground. It's there's a reason for it. There's a reason why you don't have a coach in the team, and being a scrum master, being in the team, but you're kind of on the periphery of it, right? And only then can you be effective, because you are really looking. You're not looking to see what is happening in terms of delivery, although that's important. You want to have an eye on that. What you're really looking for is, where are the pain points, where are the challenges, what's happening deep in here. What are my sensors telling me? If a good Scrum Master is tuned in to the things that you can't see, or you can't necessarily, you're not being told, you're listening out for things. And that's absolutely golden for where the Scrum Master can be effective and enable a high performing team, right? So when you're able to really focus in on one team or two teams maximum, you know, sometimes if you've got a really mature team, like have been together more than 6 months stable, no, nobody's moved or changed or in that time, the Scrum Master's role isn't as necessary, because it's likely they would have coached them and been very much hands-on for that time, and then you start to step away. So you can do slightly less and less, because they become more autonomous, more self-organized as a team. So getting that depth, really focusing in on those things, then you start to enable, or you can start to work with the things that need working on. You can do some training, you can look at process and what process needs to be improved. You can work individually on one-to-ones and make sure that the trust is being built up, and all of these kind of things, and really focusing in on the different types of interactions, the ceremonies, and spend the real time just making sure that those are perfected, essentially, and the behaviors are in, according to, what would be right for the team and help the team. And that's where you're sort of clearing the path and helping them grow into a really high performing team. So that's the purpose of the Scrum Master. That's the absolute the role that they will play in terms of being, or enabling, or being the success factor for the team, right? And it's a thankless task. If you have a high performing team, no one goes to the Scrum Master and gives them like Coach of the Year prize or anything like that. It's they have to take it's quite a difficult job to get there, especially if you've got a team that is not necessarily performing in when you first go in there, or it's a new team, or maybe there's just been some real turnover and the morale's really low. The Scrum Master comes in and actually can change that round, turn it round. But very difficult if you're working on multiple teams and having to deal with just the kind of all the fires that are going on in all over the place. Very, very difficult to go deep on that. So that's what I would recommend in my experience. I'm much more effective with a smaller amount of teams. I can focus in on and I can go really deep, and work with them one to one and spend some real quality time trying to build that capability, build that competence up. So essentially, the role of the Scrum Master is to enable. It's like the number one objective is to enable a team to get to a place of high performance, and then you share the success together. So that was essentially the video for today. And if that really resonates with you, I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts. How has it been for you? What's going on for you right now? Have you been, or are you in a situation where you're spread quite thin? How is it feeling for you? And do you feel like you're being effective, or is it something that that would help you? And has this video been of use to you, and you've got some ideas there? Then do leave a comment. I will. I read them all, and I promise to respond as much as I can. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of this kind of content as well, and make some suggestions about some things you'd like to see. And also, if you would like to measure the impact that you're having as a Scrum Master or an aspiring Agile coach, if you want to see the level of authority and influence that you have in the team and beyond the team, and the impact that you're having, take the scorecard. Links are in the show notes. And also, I'm running a challenge, a team. It's a high performing team challenge, and it takes place. We do it once a month, and it runs for 5 days, and all sorts of tips and tricks about how to build a high performing team, but sustain it for the long term as well. So sign up for those. Links are in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care.